Good day, everyone. My name is Florence Okudele, and you are watching the Multicultural Community Hour. In this episode, we have the pleasure of having Mary Scott with us today. Mary is educated in Manitoba with a master's degree in Natural Resources Management. Began her career with Employment and Immigration Canada, and later Human Resources Development Canada. Her work spans decades, including roles at the National Council of Women of Canada and leadership in local women's organizations. Mary co-founded the Institute for International Women's Rights, Manitoba. She served on the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority Board, an advocate for women's rights through IT initiatives, and the Manitoba Coalition. Mary accolades includes the Why Women of Distinction Award, Governor General's Award, and Canada 150 Medal. She will receive the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Council of Women of Winnipeg and the Provincial Council of Women of Manitoba on July 9th. Welcome, Mary, and thank you for coming.
Thank you, Florence. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
It's a pleasure to have you here with us, and to our viewers at home and in various places. It's so wonderful to have such a personality join us today, and we are so overwhelmed with joy, and thanking you for being here. So today, without losing much time, Mary, please, can you help us understand the role of women in our society?
Well, it's a big topic, the role of women, the role of girls. And when I'm talking about women, I'm talking about women in all their diversity. You know, when you look at the history of historical role of women and patriarchy, where men really were the dominant decision makers in a community. Then, you know, the growing recognition that, you know, women are human, women have rights, and women have human rights. So now we're at this point where there is respect, there is understanding, not by everybody, but a growing recognition of the important role. It's women that are the child bearers, generally the child rearers, and have a special role to play as life givers. The world needs to come together to recognize that they must be part of the decision makers, not just the givers and the supporters and the workers following orders. No, they have a unique role to play in society at the global level, the national level, and indeed at the local level. Women's voices, because they have this caring, nurturing part of being a woman, a caring person, that needs to be recognized and supported. So that's where I come from in supporting women's voices. I think you, Florence, you know, you recognize what's happening in many countries, including Nigeria, but in many countries like Afghanistan, what's happening in you know, so many countries in Israel and Palestine, the effects of war, the effects of violence, how that affects women and girls and children. And so it's important that their rights as human beings be supported, recognized, and listened to.
Yeah, thank you so much. I know when we talk to Mary Scott, you talk about women's rights, and I'm not surprised that I'm hearing about rights coming out from you. Thank you for that. Viewers at home, today we are talking with Mary Scott, one of the most powerful women in Winnipeg, in Manitoba, in Canada, and the world as well. Mary has taken women to the global level and has joined other women on the global scene to bring attention to what is happening to missing and murdered women and indigenous women of Manitoba, and has been a champion of women's rights. So today we are so excited and happy to have you in our show. From your vast experience, Mary, both on local and international level, please help the viewers to understand, are we doing enough compared to women from other countries?
Oh, definitely. You can't do enough. You can't do more. You know, it's so necessary. And recognizing, I think the number one thing is including diversity in the decision making. Mm-hmm. And I think supporting women when funds are being given for a good cause, ensuring that there are women that are part of the decision makers, part of the staff, and ensuring that that is a diverse range of women. Mm-hmm. And I think the need, I know we have an ambassador, for example, in Canada, an ambassador for women, peace, and security. Mm-hmm. And that's wonderful, you know, giving support to that role, that important role as an ambassador. What more can be done? What does she think we should be doing? Mm-hmm. Listening to women who have that role to play, listening to the work of UN women at the international level. And is Wage doing enough? Mm-hmm. You know, the department who has a responsibility for supporting gender issues, you know, are they doing enough? Violence against women, the support, education and training for women. When I first, and you mentioned, I worked with what was then Employment and Immigration. Mm-hmm. The only alternatives for women at that time that were on UI, unemployment insurance, was hairdressing or secretarial school. Those were the only two alternatives.
Oh, wow.
You know, like I said, my gosh, you know, women can do a lot more than that.
That sounds, I'm sure viewers watching this at home, some of you from diverse background will be thinking, are we talking about Canada?
I know. Like women as truck drivers, come on, you know.
Because from societies that are represented here in Manitoba, we still have women do all those jobs. Women have to be teachers, women have to be cooks, you know, and tailors.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, and change has happened, you know, partly because of advocates like you too, Florence. So I think things have changed, and that is good. But we must keep up that struggle, not just for us and Canada, but indeed for women in other parts of the world.
You talked about the Indigenous women of Canada. I just want to let viewers know that Mary has supported the voices of our Indigenous sisters being recognized and heard, and she's also an active member of the Manitoba Coalition for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, G2S. In December, Mary received a star blanket from the Mamawi Chi Itita Center in recognition for her support. Now, talking about our Indigenous women and our Indigenous sisters, we're talking about violence against women and safety. Do you think Indigenous women and girls are safe in our society, even with all the advancement?
Florence, this is something that affects me very much. When you know, the information came out, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and some of the research that was going on the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls in Two-Spirit, and the coalition started, and you know, it was hearing the stories, knowing the facts, but hearing the stories. It was just appalling. Why there wasn't more action sooner, and taking that story, taking the facts, taking the very obvious situation that was happening here locally. And Egon Sinclair talks about that we, that Winnipeg was where everything was happening, and the hotbed, the real source of so much of the violence against women and girls. It was happening right here. And I really wondered, how could I make a difference? And the big thing is just, and I've said this, showing up, being there as a friend, being there as a supporter, showing your reaction of horror, taking that horror and going to the political folks and saying, this is wrong. This is wrong. We have to search. We have to search for those bodies. And I think now the government is listening and wanting to do things, and I think that's the only way to go. But we have to look at broadening that so that the community understands this is not acceptable. Why is it happening? How do we change attitudes? How do we change men's attitudes and boys? And the wonderful stories of the stories that Indigenous, the cultural values are so beautiful and so warming. And to dismiss that is so totally wrong. So my heart is with the Indigenous community. My heart and support goes to the women and youth and the diversity of gender. The Two-Spirit folks, transgendered. It's a rich, so much to offer. But the healing needs to happen. The healing of the terrible effects of residential school. I mean, having your children taken, the silence in your home, the children are gone. I mean, it is so depressing, so sad.
It is so sad, and I join you on that. Sometimes, as an immigrant woman myself, I find it very difficult to grasp, exactly what took place, and to think that it happened in a land where we are. I'm from Nigeria, I'm from Africa, where we actually think that when our belief system is on the land, and we believe solely on keeping the land pure and sacred. And something like that happening to the land, it's so sacrilegious that it will require a lot of cleansing to be done. And part of the cleansing, like you talked about, is the people living in the land to stop for a moment and think, this is wrong, and say to themselves, this is wrong. Like you said, show up. Show up to even say that, acknowledge that this is done. But we haven't seen that happen, and we are seeing it happening gradually. But if you can help our viewers to understand, why did it take the government so long?
I think it was, the police chief. I think Danny Smith was the police chief at the time, and I guess he thought this is just going to be too much money. And because it was like, a year and a half ago, if he had said, listen, we have to go in there and do a search, they probably would have had a better opportunity or better chance of actually locating the remains of these women. So, the police chief just seemed to, okay, we're not going to do it. It's too expensive. It's too difficult. It's too difficult. Well, give me a break,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
We don't want to hear that.
It's somebody's child. It's somebody's daughter that is there. I don't think anyone will have a closure.
I think if Danny Smith had come forward and said, you know, we've got to, as a community, come together on this and find those bodies, we wouldn't be in this situation. Yes, the politicians, I mean, they were playing games. I certainly fault the Premier at the time and the Conservative government. I mean, yes, they did do a report, but they focused on different things in that report, not on the main message of, yes, if you want to do it, this is what you have to do, which is what we had to listen to. So I think for political reasons, they made their decision, which was wrong. But they obviously were not successful with with their message. So I'm glad other people didn't support their position.
Thank you so much, Mary. Viewers at home, again, we have the honor of having Mary Scott, a woman that has led women of Canada to many places on the global level, and also championing the women's rights in our local community here. Mary has occupied many positions in the government, in civil society, as well as volunteer places. So, Mary, reading your bio, you have been in the immigration department for some time, and you had experience of families immigrating to Canada, and you have championed the rights of women as well. I guess my next question will be on women, families that are here in Manitoba. How do you see their development and working alongside other women? Do you see any gaps?
There are lots of gaps. I think if you ask the community, they would identify. I think it's particularly hard, particularly if there's a family. Women coming on their own, women as caregivers. Canada had that agreement. If you came over and you were a caregiver for a family, and then you could get to stay, and that was a program that started, the wonderful Filipino community here in Winnipeg was that caregiver program. And I think it was a 2-year commitment that many women came, did their position, and then were able to bring in others. And so there were some programs that Canada and Manitoba certainly supported. And I think the issue for women, if they come over as a family, is earning money. That's a big one. And
yes.
So,
and paying their bills.
Paying their bills. And sometimes there's even a commitment they have to pay for the plane that brought them to Canada. So there's pressure, financial pressure, and learning the language, getting their kids organized to school, which may be totally different than what they were used to, but wanting their kids to do well, and so the language and learning about the community. It's not the priority for the women to do that. As a community, it could be for their partner. And their children are the priority, and so programs like this, where women can watch it and bring women together, whatever way, whether it's using computer technology and some way of coming together, is a really good thing. And I think the more that they can learn about, say, the Indigenous community, because it might be kind of fearful. They walk down Main Street, or they're, what's going on? They hear stories, they read the paper. And so learning the positive values of the and the history of the Indigenous peoples is I think really, really important. And I think the general community, the more diversity training they can have, the more that Winnipeggers in general have of the diversity of our city and what the values, what that means. It can be a very positive way of the conflicts that can happen. But I think for women, it is, I remember when the Syrian women, Syrian families all came over, and a friend, kind of organized, and I was helping out and doing some things, and, bringing them together to cook and, sew, like Rebecca Dang's got a whole program going, and the women can get together and chat and kind of do some very useful things. The menstrual kits that they're putting together that can be sent over or used wherever they're needed. I think that's there's a lot of good work that is being done by the immigrant refugee women here in Winnipeg. I know that. They're strong. They're women like you. They're not necessarily going to be there in the front, but they're going to be working in the kitchens, in their homes, in the schools, and that's great. We all benefit from that. Yeah.
And viewers at home, we are talking about women in our community, the role of women in our community. And we have no other person better than Mary Scott to speak on this issue. And Mary, I just heard you mention about, it will be important for immigrant women to learn about the history of indigenous women and the trauma that they have gone through. I really agree with you on that, because I think there is not much education or happening on that level to teach immigrant families about the real thing that has happened. I mean, it's enough. We could read as much as we want. We could talk about it, but if we do not sit down and seriously educate people, they might not actually get the impact. So, from your knowledge and from your experience, is there anything, or can you suggest any ways where this diversity can work together on this particular issue to get people to learn together in one forum?
Yeah, bringing together the immigrant and refugee families and the indigenous women and families. I'm sure there would be opportunities, just bringing them here to talk. I've always been one who would never speak for someone, but speak with, and supporting their voices. And, like Mama Way, where I received the blanket, I would say approaching Mama Way. Tammy Christensen is now the executive director. Diane Redsky was there. And she might be someone to have come onto your program here, this kind of a setting. And I'd be happy to link you with Tammy. And she's particularly working with youth. But she has done a lot of Mama Way has done a lot of good work. And, volunteering in whatever way that she might suggest that would bring women together in what's called a sharing circle, and hearing the stories. So that's just one suggestion.
Yeah, I really love the sharing circle. Is it still going on right now, the sharing circles?
I don't know, but
I think it's a wonderful program.
It is a wonderful way of doing
things. To be brought
things
back in our community.
I love sharing circles as well, and I think if you approached Mama Way, or maybe there's another Indigenous organization you could speak to, and put forward that idea, and having women from the immigrant and refugee community that could participate in that. I've had a friend, Clayton Sandy, who I've learned so much from over the years, and he would be another colleague who could help or suggest how to do something like that. and have them come and maybe speak and come talk about ideas. But definitely sharing circles are a wonderful. And you know, it's not that you're giving a lecture, eh? Everybody's got a view.
View, exactly. Thank you so much, viewers at home. Thank you for joining us at this time for our community hour. And we have the pleasure of talking to Mary Scott, a woman in the community who is volunteering her time and energy, helping women and girls in development, in anything they could ask of her. She is a dedicated mother, a grandmother, a wife, and a dedicated mother, a grandmother, recognized by the indigenous community. So thank you, Mary, for being here today. I guess one of these questions that I would love you to share with us, Mary have extensive knowledge on information technology, and I remember working with her at some point, and I know the quickness, the fastness at which she turns out documents is unbelievable. And that shows the experience that she has acquired, which is immeasurable. So today, Mary, I just wanted to find out, can you tell, looking at what is going on right now, that women are adequately or in a situation where they could learn and be able to produce their work with less problems or
certainly
issues?
Technology, you know, it's a whole topic, isn't it? And courses at university, and certainly women and girls to be aware and learn. It's like a jungle, eh? You don't send your kids out into the jungle without some preparation. And so it's important that families and adults kind of, when they have children, kind of know, okay, there can be some challenges and some disasters that could happen with technology. I just wanted to share a little bit because it might be interesting. When I had learned from work, when I was working, kind of some of the basic skills, and I could see, you know, word processing and some of the advantages of the computer and being able to record and do it easier than typing, and you had certain ways with the software, even back in WordPerfect days. And yet so many women, my age, young age, at that point were really scared. They didn't want to even turn on the computer. You know, they were reluctant to kind of get involved. And we did a whole program called Alice in Cyberland, and just for women, and you know, young, could be girls or teenagers, whatever. And it was such a huge success. And now with the change and use of AI, it can be a threat. You know, it can be a threat, and so the more women can be informed about technology, not that they have to be, you know, graduates or go to university, but just being familiar with some of the basics, you know, learning even from their children or grandchildren. It's very important because now it's part of everybody's life, you know, it is. So how can you control it? How can you use it constructively? And support your children, knowing what's good and what's not so good, and spending so much time, because it does become addictive. So I think technology can be very harmful for women, and it, you know, can be used to manipulate women and girls, and aggressively. You know, even our women politicians, you know, they're bombarded with very rude and very terrifying messages. So it's you know, okay, what do you do when you get a message like that? A lot of older folks like me that get all these scams, you know, and okay, how can you prevent that? So you're quite right. That's an important question for everybody to deal with, including women and girls.
Yep.
And the more you can learn, whether it's by taking courses or following it online or whatever way, you know, I think it's an important question.
I will just thank you for your answer, by the way. But as we were talking, I was just thinking about what you just mentioned about technology on women, but I was also looking back at what we had just discussed about safety, firstly to the women and girls, and secondly to the you know, indigenous women of Canada. Don't you think that our society should place more emphasis on every woman or women that have showed interest in learning these things to have the resources to do that? Especially, I also hear a lot of women from, a lot of immigrant women from diverse society who are, if I may say, maybe Muslims, and women that don't speak English, but are well versed in this technology because they learned it from their own culture and from their language. Yeah. But they do get a setback because the society doesn't see the skill, but they see what they see first is what they take. So women from, I would just say from discussing with other women that it seems to be at different levels. Women are at different levels. While you have immigrant women who are educated in information technology, not being given a headway here, or even, you know, getting a headway to align themselves with what is happening here, learn new skills to add to what they have. They have to start from. Do you think that is a problem on itself? Because
I definitely think so. I think that you know, if you're looking at either, you know, getting a position, you've got the skills, and it's, you know, they don't look at that. Yeah. That's definitely a problem. So yes, I think that you've had the advantage of an education and awareness, and you can do the coding, you can do all the work that's required. I think that's great, and to be celebrated, and finding work, employment, if that's what you want, or further education. I know I've just seen some pictures recently from the G7 and the Canadian group, and there was a lot of technology and discussion about AI, and the team was predominantly female and predominantly diverse. Like, I couldn't believe it. There were Muslim, there were women of color, there was, and that was Canadian, the support team for, you know, the political folks that were speaking for Canada at the G7. And I was just, I was so happy to see this. Like, there wouldn't have been anybody in that team, like they were all younger, you know, maybe they were in university, but it was very encouraging to see that. So you're quite right. Yeah. The more we can do to open doors for women that can do that job, hats off. You know?
And I am also looking at bringing it down to our community. You know, women in most societies run the show in the home. And is it not very important for the women to begin to get on board on the AI, learning on the AI issues than relegating them out and just, you know,
taking it seriously? As I said, you know, way back in the 90s when we did this Alice in Cyberland, and women were, but then once they got a hold of it and they could realize they could do all these things on word processing, for example, and sending messages to their families or whatever. I mean, they loved it because but they were frightened at first about turning on the computer was, you know, and it was more challenging in those days. But you know, just getting over that kind of, and then realizing how they can use it their way.
Wow, thank you so much, Mary. We've learned a lot, ladies and gentlemen and viewers at home. Thank you for joining us in our community hour for today. And before we end our show, Mary, I just have one last question for you.
Sure.
If you could make a wish, or if you could leave a legacy for us in Winnipeg, in Manitoba, in Canada, what would that be for women?
A legacy. I think it's, you know, the wonderful warmth of being with a community of of women that are aware of the strength of women, the love of women, and as I say, when I speak about women, I speak about the diversity of women, women who call themselves, those who call themselves women. I'm really, you know, it's that love and it's that affection and strength and determination. You're an example, Florence. So a legacy is recognizing that what women can do.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us and thank you for coming to this show. Viewers at home, thank you for watching Community Hour at the Multicultural channel.